Welcome back to the Groundhog Day channel, where it seems just about every day we work on this freaking air compressor. This is your first trip to the channel. This is my 15, 16, really old, many years old, Harbor Freight 21-gallon air compressor. They have discontinued this one and all those like it in the time that I have owned it. And there is a playlist for this thing and for air compressor things in general that I will link right up there and down the description for you so you can go catch up on the happenings. The quick haps on this thing is 4 months ago I put a head gasket in it and got it back up and running, resurrected it from the dead. And then 2 days ago, it appears to have blown another head gasket. So I'm going to tear it down again and see what's going on. I'm not going to go blow by blow through everything because we already have that video. I'm going to get it down to where the head gasket is and we're going to take a look at it. And since I already have spare gaskets, I'm gonna go ahead and tear the jug off of it too, or at least there's a valve plate, because I didn't do that last time. So we're gonna tear it down, see if there's anything obvious that's going on with it, that maybe I just didn't tear it down far enough to see last time. And this happened after the first time I really leaned on it hard since I put it back together. Like I had it running for probably an hour and a half straight. It did not like that. I use this thing mostly for 3 different jobs, and I'm trying to offload all those jobs onto electric tools as much as I can. So there will be a new tool coming soon, which will be fun, because a new air compressor is, and we'll just say better part of 600 bucks for what I want, and I don't have the money for that right now, so we're gonna try and resurrect this guy one more time. Alrighty, so it looks like this head gasket failed, I think, pretty much exactly where the last one did. I don't really see a defect on the head or anything. I do see some marring, and I noted in the last video this head is none too smooth. I may do some sanding on it and see if I can get it back a little smoother. And it also looks like maybe this replacement gasket partially shrouded this hole, so I think before I replace it again I'll probably just trim some of that back. But get this guy out of here, if it even will. It certainly was stuck on. Let's see about getting this reed plate off. This we did not do before. Oh, hard to say if that was a problem before or not, but it certainly is now. Not an issue. We have plenty more gaskets. I kind of saw this coming. Don't believe this reed is broken. It just sits down on there. Certainly dirty. We'll clean up a little. There's some junk down in the bore. To my shock, the bore actually looks really good. Very little scoring. There's also no crosshatch, but who knows if there ever was, right? Oh, and a big portion of that junk is probably just the gasket I just knocked down in there. Since I'm here, as a service to everyone including me, I'm going to take some quick measurements of this reed. Near enough to 20 wide, 57 long, 0.24 thick. Out here at the dingus end, 28. We'll get a hole diameter, why not? 350 on the holes, or near enough. Yeah, 350. Cool. So I'm going to spend some time just cleaning this up with a putty knife and probably some sandpaper. And this also has a pretty rough machined finish, so I'm going to try and clean that up some and smooth it down as I go, and we will catch back up. Well, something fun I learned. My shop vac can lift these pins, and against all odds, we actually got the pin back. Right there it is. You might have been thinking, why wouldn't you just run a magnet in there and find it? All that dark stuff is rust. There's probably 2 or 3 pounds of my blazer in here. We'd have never got it back. So against all odds, we managed to fish it out. Also, over here I'm finding a razor blade is required to take this off. It's pretty stuck on there after, is it like 17 years? 16 years. Also pulled the other valve apart. Just took it off that valve plate. And roughly, 62-ish. Probably about 40, 42. This is not exact, of course. About 5.3 thick. No. These calipers are junk. These are Harbor Freight garbage calipers. And 5.3 would be almost a 1/4 inch. So let's try that again. 0.3 millimeters. So yeah, 0.3 millimeters. Let's make sure the rest of my dimensions aren't wacky. It's hard to measure this guy accurately with just calipers, but yeah, I'd say that's about 60. And really just looking at the rule on the caliper, that's like 43, 44. Caliper's saying about 40. So that should get you in the door if you were trying to buy parts before taking yours apart. Other interesting things that have been going on. This is the valve plate, now devoid of valve, and I've just taken a 2x4 with a piece of 120 grit on it and just used it as a flat surface to sand this stuff on. That's why I tore apart the other valve too, so I could do the other side. And you can see as a byproduct of that, I've removed whatever tiny amount of plating there was also on this. That's why it was yellow before. You can see just a little bit of wear back here where that valve's been shattering away. It's actually kind of funny. Anyway, that's cleaned up well. I will probably take some 1000 to it too, just to see if I can get those fine scratches out. I decided against sanding the top of this because I don't want to get any sand down in the bore. So it actually looks pretty nice in there. But I am totally sanding the head, and that is yielding really nice results. It's hard to get it to come through on camera, but I think I did just down here. You can see those mill marks where they machined it at whatever factory this thing came out of. You can see they're going away right here. And that is happening all over this thing. Those mill marks are getting lighter and lighter, and they're being replaced with my sanding scratches as I'm taking them out, which is good. That's exactly what I want to do, is I want to make this a smoother surface. And again, I will probably go back over this with like some 800 or 1000 or something once I get all these mill marks out and just knock my sanding scratches down a little. But this is my elaborate workstation for this job. Block of wood on a trash can, cylinder head. The other head I use to hold the sandpaper and just scrub, scrub, scrub. It's actually going really quick. Since this is aluminum, it doesn't take very long. Anyway, we'll catch back up when I've got this stuff as good as I'm gonna get it. So I've got all the valves and everything cleaned up, which was kind of a fun time. Plate is fairly well cleaned up. You can see there's still plenty of scratches in it, but as bad as this was from the factory, I didn't worry about it a whole lot. I think I'm reassembling this correctly. The valve has a natural preload to go opposite of this guy, which I think is basically a valve spring or a valve stop. So that will get screwed back together like so, and then our other reed valve goes underneath it. Gaskets go in and off we go. The cylinder head itself is where I spent most of my time, and I left it in a way which you can see what I'm talking about. I actually found a low spot here in the middle, which when I'm using a block of wood as a surface plate to do this, who knows if it was the wood block or if this thing actually had a low spot. But you can see the outside edges are more polished, and then as we progress more toward the center, it gets worse. That was especially true right here. I actually worked this for quite a while. I'm pretty sure that's where our gasket's been blown out too. So maybe that was the root of our problem. Maybe not, don't know, but it's ready to go back together. There's no huge amount of mystery in how to do that. If you are unsure, go check out the other video in the playlist where I did exactly this job except for this step. The one thing I am going to do, this reed right here, you can see it's got a circle worn in it where it's been closing up against that port. This I'm going to install the other way around. It appears to be, a flat piece of spring metal, so it shouldn't matter. I'm just going to give it a new opportunity to seal on a fresh face. In all this stuff I did wet sand with 800 just to clean it up. So looking at this whole assembly, this is all up. There's the circle on the valve. So it was like that. I'm going to flip it over. In fact, I'll just drop that right on the block right now so I don't forget. So now I have this fresh side pointed up into, I don't know what you want to call this, valve plate? Yeah. It looks like the other gaskets in the kit are basically close enough to work. Also, just hanging out here in the summertime heat, they've warped because they're just wax coated, but I found that to be interesting. But anyway, I'm just going to bolt this stuff back together. I didn't notice any of the head bolts were loose, so I'm just going to use the same torque I did last time. I think it was like 14 foot-pounds. I just did it until I felt comfortable. Then we're going to fire this thing up before it becomes too late, because I'm kind of dying to know if it's going to work for another 4 months or whatever again. And I did trim this gasket just in case it was shrouding the hole, and you can probably just barely see it. I cut too far. I just did that with a razor blade and it slipped. It isn't all the way through, so that side it didn't protrude. It isn't as bad as it looks, but it isn't good either. So if this thing immediately pops another head gasket, I will take the blame for it. Is what it is at this point. I was planning to get some more spares coming from China anyway, so I will just get 2 sets of spares instead of 1. Alrighty, so there she is, all reassembled. The only other thing I can think of that might be why this thing is popping head gaskets is my little custom-made air box. Now, I really don't think this thing is a contributing factor. I've run it with no filter. I've run it with this thing. The pump up times and everything are identical. This thing is filtering. The element is a little dirty, but it's not like filthy. So I think this thing works, but I know people didn't like this. It was kind of a fiddly thing to put together. And I was going to make this next thing its own video, but really it's so short and sweet. And this opportunity came up, so I may as well. This guy here, I think, is an M20 to 3/4 inch adapter. And if I'm not exactly right about that, don't worry, I'll link what it really is down in the description. And I would have bet money I'd already had this thing threaded in here before. There we go. And those are actually surprisingly easy to get a hold of because they use them in some sort of industrial setting for swapping out a certain kind of safety interlock switch to a different kind. It was not cheap though, it was like 10 bucks. This is a Solberg air compressor filter that is actually meant for air compressors. And you can see in there it has a paper element and all that good stuff. So its lot in life is to do exactly this job. Also, something kind of neat is it's got a remote intake, so you can run an intake pipe off somewhere else if you want. I've been told that can quiet down compressors quite a bit. I don't expect it to quiet down this super noisy compressor, but there we go. This guy, gone. To the trash can. We're going to roll the Solberg, which is meant for exactly this job. Those of you who have only stopped in for this video, for like the first, I don't know, 15 years I own this thing, I ran it with no filter at all because I was too dumb to know any better. But anyway, done. We are putting this back to correct. This is probably about a $30 ordeal, whereas the project I just threw in the trash was probably, I don't know, 10 or 12 bucks. This was certainly easier, I'll give it that. It is just barely still early enough that I feel all right about plugging this guy in and turn him on, so let's see what happens. So on this most recent failure, this thing wouldn't even get up past about 50 PSI, and we want to see it up about 120-ish, so we want to see our needle about right here. Hopefully that doesn't take any more than about 4.5 minutes. I think that is our benchmark. Let's make sure we don't catch up anything in our cooling fan, which is about ready to fall off anyway. It's just getting so worn out. Alrighty, I foolishly was not paying attention when I plugged it in. It was automatically on and I wasn't expecting that. But it looks like that was probably less than 4 minutes. I will check the video and I will also check the previous video and see if it's about the same or maybe better than it was. And I will answer you in text.
Oh, hang on a second. We got a plot twist. Turns out this thing pumped up in 3 minutes and 33 seconds with our new filter versus 4 minutes and 3 seconds with no filter. Either the cleaning of the valve or flipping it over or slightly unshrouding the valve with the modification I made to the gasket. Something I did has improved the performance of this thing pretty measurably. It's still really slow in actual use. I've been using the thing for months at this point. I hadn't noticed it gotten any faster. But it's pretty cool that I now have some amount of data to show, okay, at least a couple of these things that I tinkered with were problems.
But it looks like right now for today, the garbage box is going to live on. Something I am going to do is I've actually got a little bit of like pressure dusting to do. I've got some air purifying filters in the house I blow out with this thing. And I usually end up running it reasonably hard for like 40 minutes or so. I'm going to go ahead and do that with the shroud still off. And I'm going to retorque the head bolts before I put the shroud and everything back on. And then I'm going to say it's either, good or bad. If it pops the head gasket, like I said, I will take the blame for overcutting that one. That was a silly thing to do. I'll be more careful if I need to do it again. So if it eats this one, I don't know what happened, but I've kind of done everything I can to keep it from eating more than this. So if you enjoy this saga of the world's oldest, most beat up, and most repaired Harbor Freight compressor, give me a like, thumbs up, share, subscribe, all that good stuff, because everybody that does that helps me get a little bit closer to buying a new one. I'm gonna get back to this tomorrow, do my dusting, and we'll catch up in just a moment. Alrighty, so I've had her running for a little while. I've had that fan on it since there's no shroud, it's got no cooling. We let it heat soak a little bit. I got cylinder head temp of about 160 right there. Jug temp, about 160. Let's check the crankcase for fun. Just a little over 100. 53 on the head over here. On the intake side, about 150. And ambient condition in the shop, about 79. So I've got her good and warm. I'm going to give it some time to cool back down to ambient, and then I will recheck the torque. Alrighty, so she's back down to temp. Let's see if they take any more torque. I ran them up to about 15, actually. Yeah, maybe just a little. At 15, they start to feel a little stretchy. Okay. Yeah, they're taking just a little torque. That one took significant. There we go. That's like 16, 15. All right, I'm gonna call it good. So be willing to bet the factory didn't let it get hot and then retorque. And there we have it, once more pressed back into service. It is just about October 2021 as I'm recording this, so I don't have that much further to go to wait until Black Friday. And I'm hoping this guy can go into retirement at that time. It's pretty clear to me we're probably just on borrowed time with this whole deal. So hopefully she'll move on along. But until then, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I thank you for stopping in. We'll catch you on the next one.
I'm Max, that's Saddington Bear, and we make videos like this all the time. Here are a couple links to some other videos we've made, and we really appreciate you guys stopping in.